Welcome to Hong Kong Brief. The content of the briefing includes: China builder Redsun's parent faces liquidation court petition. Harvest Fund seeks offshore growth as China investors flee rout. The Asian financial crisis, Haruhiko Kuroda, 16. Coach says China in privileged position, 4 games set to define their Asian Cup. Possible tax squeeze on Australian expats in Hong Kong may drive them to Singapore. China builder Redsun's parent faces liquidation court petition. Bloomberg. Hongyang Group, the parent company of Chinese developer Redsun Properties Group, has received a winding-up petition in a Hong Kong court. The petition is scheduled to be heard on March 27. Hongyang is the guarantor of a defaulted $275 million bond that was originally due in 2022. Creditors of distressed Chinese firms have been turning to Hong Kong courts to recover their losses, with at least 3 Chinese developers or their units receiving liquidation orders from the city's courts. Harvest Fund seeks offshore growth as China investors flee rout. Bloomberg. Harvest Fund management is seeking to cater to rising demand for cross-border investments as the Chinese stock market struggles. The company is almost out of its $4.2 billion quotas under the Qualified Domestic Institutional Investor Program, which allows locals to invest abroad. Harvest Fund plans to work with partners that still have unused quotas and clients with offshore assets. The firm is optimizing staff to cut costs in Hong Kong and is looking to hire senior professionals familiar with both domestic and foreign markets, as well as bilingual trainees. The Asian financial crisis, Haruhiko Kuroda, 16. Nikkei Asia. Former Bank of Japan Governor Haruhiko Kuroda has said that a proposed Asian Monetary Fund, AMF, could have provided more assistance to Asian countries during the 1997 Asian financial crisis. Kuroda claims that the AMF would have supplemented the International Monetary Fund's, IMF, support, which was insufficient at the time. However, the AMF proposal was later shelved. Coach says China in privileged position, 4 games set to define their Asian Cup. South China Morning Post. China's national football team has a privileged position as they face defending champions Qatar in their final game of the Asian Cup group stage. Despite disappointing draws against Tajikistan and Lebanon, China remains in second place in Group A, with their fate in their own hands. If China lose to Qatar, they risk being overtaken by their previous opponents and exiting the group stage. China's coach, Alexander Yankovic, said that the team is motivated to perform well and secure a place in the knockout stage. Possible tax squeeze on Australian expats in Hong Kong may drive them to Singapore. South China Morning Post. The head of the Australian Chamber of Commerce in Hong Kong has called on the government to negotiate a double taxation treaty with Australia, saying such a deal would ensure the city remained attractive to talent from the country that might otherwise go to regional rival Singapore. Canberra is also weighing changes to its own tax residency framework that could affect a number of Australian expats living in Hong Kong. Certain Australian expatriates will be affected if the tax change proposed by Canberra becomes law. Currently, those who reside in Australia for 183 days or more have to pay tax there on their income. The country wants to reduce the number of days to 45 for those who also have the right of abode, or have family, residential property, or other economic interests in the country. The Post has learned that Australia's Treasury Department is considering submissions that it received during the proposal's consultation period, which ended last September. Hong Kong's banks explore ending checks to shift to e-payments. South China Morning Post. The Hong Kong Association of Banks, HKAB, is working on a roadmap to phase out check use, as electronic payment methods have become increasingly popular amid the COVID-19 pandemic. Check transactions in Hong Kong fell by 13% YOY to 488.6 billion Hong Kong dollars, $62.5 billion, in December, while transactions via the faster payment system rose by 39% to 430.24 billion Hong Kong dollars. HSBC CEO Luan Lim, the chair of HKAB, said a task force will explore various possibilities and options to encourage check users to shift to digital payments. It is unclear if checks will be completely phased out. Mainland developers fade in Hong Kong after property crisis. Bloomberg. Chinese developers have been retreating from Hong Kong due to the downturn in the mainland property market. From 2018 to 2020, mainland developers accounted for about 57% of residential areas obtained from government land sales, but this figure has dropped to 16% from 2021 to 2023. This has resulted in an increase in market share for local developers in Hong Kong, such as CK Asset Holdings and Sun Hung Kai Properties. Smaller companies like Sinoland have also been acquiring more projects. The prolonged property slump in China has caused chaos among developers, with companies like Country Garden Holdings, Logan Group, and KWG Group struggling to repay debt. Haughey reveals her swimming epiphany as she gives insights to Hong Kong pupils. South China Morning Post. Hong Kong's Olympic swimming star Siobhan Haughey has said she wants to make sure she enjoys her third Olympics in Paris this summer because she doesn't know how many more she has left. Haughey has set world records, dominated World Cup events, and won Hong Kong's first swimming gold at the Asian Games. The 26-year-old said she would tell her 8-year-old self, "Don't give up on something and keep working hard because great things are going to happen and you just have to be patient and keep going." Hong Kong urged to rival Singapore on green finance subsidies as offerings slow. South China Morning Post. Hong Kong has helped drive a surge in bond sales tied to green and sustainable projects, with the government spending 210 million Hong Kong dollars, $26.9 million, to subsidize issuance costs. Market players are calling for an extension of the 3-year incentive to rival Singapore's offerings. The city-state has approved grants for issues including bonds and loans worth over $100 billion since the scheme was introduced in May 2021. Sustainable bond and loan issues surged 42% to $80.5 billion in 2022, according to official data, declining to about $36 billion in 2023 due to U.S. rate hikes. Asia hedge fund founders shut shop for big pay at global giants. Bloomberg. Founders of hedge funds in Asia are increasingly joining larger global rivals such as Citadel and Millennium Management as capital raising difficulties and pressure to produce higher returns make solo ventures less attractive. The move has been prompted by higher interest rates, which have increased expected returns and are predicted to encourage more Asian hedge fund entrepreneurs to embrace larger global firms. In the 3 quarters to end June 2023, hedge fund closures in the region outstripped new starts by at least 2 to 1. Goldman Sachs doubles financing to Hong Kong fintech fund Park to $500 million. South China Morning Post. Hong Kong-based fintech startup Fund Park has received $500 million from Goldman Sachs to provide trade finance to small and medium-sized enterprises. The funding will be used to provide loans to SMEs that often have requests for trade finance rejected by banks, creating a $2.5 trillion trade financing gap globally, according to the Asian Development Bank. Fund Park, which has already disbursed $2 billion to 16,500 SMEs, employs an AI-driven credit model to assess borrowers and provide financing solutions based on their needs and credit grading. Exposed and vulnerable, why pain may be ahead for investors. The Sydney Morning Herald. The recent surge in the U.S. stock market can be attributed to 2 main factors: excitement about artificial intelligence, AI, and the expectation of interest rate cuts. The market capitalization of graphics processing unit producer NVIDIA has more than doubled since March 2022 to $1.5 trillion. The anticipation of lower interest rates has also played a significant role in the market's performance, particularly in relation to big tech stocks. This is because the discount rates used to calculate the present value of long-term earnings are extremely sensitive to changes in interest rates. However, the investor confidence that rates would be cut frequently has waned, resulting in a loss of momentum in the market. This change in sentiment is partly due to the view that the U.S. Federal Reserve will approach this phase of the interest rate cycle more cautiously and make fewer cuts than previously anticipated. Additionally, there are other reasons for caution, including a potential slowdown in the U.S. economy, domestic political turmoil, and global geopolitical risks. Electric aircraft may have more potential than we thought. Bloomberg. Dutch startup Elysian Aircraft has proposed a design for a 90-seater plane that would rely entirely on battery power for normal flight, according to 2 papers published this month. The aircraft would fly for up to 800 kilometers on battery power. The company said the plane could compete on some of the busiest air routes in the world and potentially reduce aviation CO2 emissions by 20%. However, industry observers said the aircraft would take 15% to 20% longer to reach its destination than a conventional jet. A day in the life of a digital nomad. The Sydney Morning Herald. 2 digital nomads have been interviewed about their experiences of working remotely while traveling the world. Aaron McDowell and his wife Geordie travel with their 7-month-old baby, Luca, and spend a month in each location. McDowell, who works remotely for a marketing agency, said he finds it easier to explore new places than he would at home. Elliot Davenport, meanwhile, said he struggled to find work when he and his partner returned to Melbourne from their travels, but eventually found a remote role in SEO. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.